Welcome back to another episode of Sports Central. Now, as you can see, we've already begun packing things up around here, as this is officially the final episode of the season. But don't worry, we'll be back in just a few weeks for the release of Madden 24. So with that being said, we're going to pick up right where we left off last episode and see what happened next in our prospects' road to glory. At the end of what many would consider a successful season, Reggie returned back home to the West Coast. Now, if this was any other college student, no one would pay it any mind. But since King is one of the top quarterbacks in college football, of course people started talking. Rumors began floating around that maybe King would return back to the Pac-12. And then his somewhat cryptic Instagram post didn't help kill any of the talking. After several weeks with no announcement, I decided to reach out and set up a one-on-one interview with our prospect so we could finally get some answers. Man, Reggie, I gotta say, after your impressive play this season, I'm sure there's plenty of Power 5 schools that would love to have you at the QB1 position. So with that being said, man, I gotta ask, where do you see yourself playing next season?
Well, I've been hearing a lot of rumors about me possibly returning to the West Coast, but if I'm being honest, man, Syracuse has become a second home for me. Now, I know we lost a lot of talent in this year's draft, but I honestly feel like with the guys we have left and the new weapons coming in, we pose a big threat next season.
Reggie made it clear that not only was he here to stay, but he was also here to win. That attitude became contagious throughout the locker room, and everyone seemed to buy into the winning spirit. Now, a week before the start of the season, the head coach and the offensive coordinator called King into their office for a very important meeting.
Reggie, I've always believed in you since our days at UCLA. You've shown your commitment to excellence, and I must say your game has continued to improve, man. Don't get a big head, but good job.
So with that being said, we have decided to give you the keys to the offense. I'm giving you the go-ahead to now call your own audibles and hot routes. We're putting our trust in you, son.
With the support of the fans, his teammates, and now his coaches, our prospect had officially become a campus legend. A goal many set out to accomplish, but very few will ever achieve. The first 4 games of the season was some of the best football I've ever seen. But look though, even after a great season the year before, Syracuse still came in unranked. The players, the coaches, and the staff all took that personally, so they went out and wreaked havoc on every opponent that was put in front of them. King had tremendous expectations as he was named a first-team All-American. Not many knew how he would respond to this pressure, which honestly is still crazy to me. I mean, every time Reggie was called to perform, he exceeded expectations. So for him to still have all these doubters just blows my mind. But look, I think he put all that talking to an end in the game versus Notre Dame. Both teams were playing well, and the victory actually just came down to one clutch play where Reggie would call his own number and scramble into the end zone for the game-winning touchdown. Boston College would be the next victim on the schedule. Now, if I had to describe this game using just one word, I'd probably say dominance. Syracuse would come out playing like they were trying to send a message to every other team in the nation. Syracuse's offense and defense were running together like a well-oiled machine, and they just completely shut out Boston College. Now, the next game on the schedule was the one we've all been waiting for. If you remember correctly, Georgia Tech beat the sleeves off of Syracuse last year and ruined their perfect record. Reggie knew coming in he wouldn't be able to play with this team as they had several returning players from last year's squad. So of course he went out there guns blazing and led his team to a very impressive victory. King's performance in the first 4 games of the season earned him All ACC Player of the Week 4 times and All NCAA Player of the Week twice. I mean, things couldn't have been going better for this team, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. It's a very long season and there's still plenty of tough games left. Now they say history has a funny way of repeating itself. Just last season, Syracuse was 6-0 and looking better than ever until they came up against a very slept-on Georgia Tech team. Well, now they're 7-0 and looking better than ever, so let's see what happened next. When an athlete dedicates himself to his craft and studies the game, things begin to slow down. Well, that's exactly what happened when Syracuse took on Wake Forest. I mean, it seemed like King was in a world of his own on the field. It was almost like he was playing the game in slow motion, making reads before the play even developed. Not only did he show he was the best player on the field, but honestly, he might have been the toughest as well. His willingness to sacrifice his body in order to make the big play showed just how committed he was to securing the victory. He would go on to finish with the video game-like stat line, throwing for over 300 yards and 5 touchdowns on only 23 attempts. Syracuse would add another victory to their win column, and they would move on to a 7-0 record. The next opponent on the schedule was Maryland, who at this time had only won 2 games on the season. Now, most fans probably would have been a no-show for this one, but Nah, that wasn't the case. On the second play of the game, Reggie was able to throw an absolute dart to his favorite receiver for a huge 70-yard touchdown. But look, on the exact same play in the second quarter, Reggie found his receiver wide open in the end zone, but unfortunately, it resulted in a drop pass. No worries though, with just over a minute left in the first half, Jawan Price was able to use his speed and quickness to break off a huge run for a touchdown off of a screen pass. Syracuse would go on to cruise to another victory. Well, not so fast. A drop pass just off the fingertips of the receiver resulted in an interception. Now, of course, Reggie was pissed because, come on, bro, just catch the ball. But again, no big deal though, right? Syracuse had the lead, so no need to panic. As you can see, things quickly took a turn for the worse, as a big hit would cause King to fumble the ball and put it right back into the hands of the Maryland offense. Up 4 points with 3 minutes left in the game, man, I don't know what the hell the coaches was thinking still passing the ball. A 1st and 10 turned into a 2nd and 21, and the starting quarterback being sidelined with the injury for the rest of the game. Maryland would go on to pull off the huge upset over Syracuse, leaving many coaches and players and fans absolutely devastated. Syracuse would also lose their next game as well, as King was ruled out with the injury. Man, this couldn't have came at a worse time because our prospect had finally broke into the Heisman conversation, man. Taking on Florida State, the 5th ranked team in the nation, Reggie felt like he had nothing to lose. Now, remember I told you he had become a team legend and can call his own plays from the field? Well, he took complete advantage of that, refusing to punt the ball on a 4th and 1 in the first quarter. King would somehow run a no-huddle play and pull off a 54-yard touchdown. This man was throwing bombs all over the field, and quite honestly, he made the Florida defense look like amateurs. With 2 losses, the chances of Syracuse playing for a national championship were slim to none, but in a very odd way, I think that only made them more dangerous for any opponent they go up against. In the final game of the regular season, Syracuse would travel to Memorial Stadium and take on the Clemson Tigers for a chance to compete against North Carolina for the ACC championship. Now, at this point of the season, man, you could tell King had started to become more careless. The once calm, cool, and composed pocket passer turned into an absolute gunslinger, scrambling a lot more and throwing risky passes that would either lead to a huge gain or an interception by the defense. There was no in between. Now, I don't want to say King was playing selfish, but if I'm being honest, man, he kind of was. He was more so focused on stuffing his stat sheet instead of making a smart pass. And again, this carelessness would either lead to a huge touchdown or an unnecessary interception. I feel like the coaches saw what was happening, but it was nothing they could do to stop it. How can you take the keys to the offense away from your star quarterback that literally turned your program around? In the fourth quarter, Syracuse found themselves with the possession of the ball and the lead. All they had to do was get 2 or 3 first downs and the game was over, but man, Reggie had other plans. Taunting the insanely loud crowd, King would quiet things down right before throwing a 58-yard dart to his receiver down the field, resulting in a first down and eventually sealing the victory. Syracuse would close out a very close game and eventually go on to play against the Tar Heels for the ACC championship. Reggie and the Syracuse team would have an amazing performance in the championship game, defeating the North Carolina Tar Heels for the ACC championship. Now, yes, our prospect still has 1 more year before he's able to enter the NFL draft, but we'll see how that plays out next week when Madden 24 is released. With that being said, I'll see you guys right back here for the new episode of Sports Central, Madden Edition.